Decades ago, a plane took off and was never seen again until now. Hidden beneath vines and shadows, a decaying aircraft was found by accident. But what was inside wasn't just old seats or rusted metal. It was something so chilling that the discovery left everyone screaming. What did the jungle hide all these years? What was so disturbing that even trained investigators couldn't believe their eyes? This isn't just another crash story. It's a tale with a dark twist you won't see coming. It all started with what was supposed to be an ordinary flight, a routine journey with clear skies, experienced pilots, and passengers filled with hopes and dreams. The mid-sized aircraft was carrying families, business travelers, and crew members, each with their own stories, unaware of the fate that awaited them. The flight took off smoothly from its departure city, everything going according to plan. But somewhere over a remote stretch of dense jungle, the aircraft vanished without a trace. There were no distress signals, no emergency calls, just radio silence. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Panic quickly spread among air traffic controllers as they desperately tried to make contact. Hours turned into days as search and rescue teams combed through potential crash sites. Helicopters scanned miles of thick canopy, boats searched nearby rivers, and ground teams battled harsh terrains. Despite their relentless efforts, no wreckage was found. It was as if the plane had simply disappeared into thin air. Families held on to hope, clinging to the possibility of survivors. But as weeks turned into months and months into years, the search was eventually called off. The plane was declared lost, its passengers presumed gone. The case faded into the shadows of unsolved mysteries, leaving behind unanswered questions and broken hearts. That is, until decades later, when something hidden deep within the jungle was discovered that would change everything. For decades, the fate of the missing plane had remained one of aviation's greatest mysteries. Investigators had long since closed the case, families had mourned their losses, and the world had moved on. But deep in the heart of an uncharted jungle, time had been holding on to its secrets. A team of explorers driven by curiosity and adventure set out on an expedition to document the untouched landscapes of a vast, unexplored rainforest. The region was known for its towering trees, winding rivers, and an eerie silence that stretched for miles. It was a place rarely traversed by humans, a land forgotten by time. Leading the team was Dr. Rebecca Chase, an experienced jungle explorer with a passion for uncovering the unknown. Alongside her were a biologist, a filmmaker, and a group of skilled survivalists, each prepared for the dangers that lurked within the dense wilderness. Armed with machetes, backpacks full of supplies, and high-tech cameras to document their journey, they embarked on what was meant to be a 3-week trek through the jungle. The air was thick with humidity, the sounds of insects filled their ears, and every step felt like venturing deeper into nature's untouched domain. But as they pushed further, strange occurrences began to unfold. The jungle, alive with movement, felt unsettlingly silent at times. Shadows shifted strangely between the towering trees, and with every step, the explorers felt a creeping sense of unease, as if they were being watched. Then came the first sign that something was wrong. An unusual metal object, partially buried beneath thick vines and layers of fallen leaves, caught their attention. Brushing off dirt and tangled roots, they revealed a rusted, unidentifiable piece of wreckage. At first they thought it might be remnants of an old military vehicle or an abandoned research station. But as they scoured the area, more fragments appeared, twisted metal, shattered glass, and even the unmistakable remnants of airplane seats. Their hearts pounded as they exchanged glances. Could it be? Had they stumbled upon the remains of a lost plane? Dr. Chase took a deep breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to keep going." With renewed urgency, the team pressed forward, following the trail of debris deeper into the jungle. After hours navigating through dense foliage, they finally saw it. Partially hidden beneath a canopy of towering trees and swallowed by time, the wreckage of a plane lay before them. The fuselage was almost entirely intact, though covered in moss and tangled vines. The nose was crushed, suggesting a violent impact, while the wings had been torn away, likely by the force of the crash. A deafening silence fell over the group. For decades, people had speculated about where this aircraft had gone. Search teams had scoured thousands of miles looking for answers, and yet here it was, hidden in plain sight, forgotten by the world. The explorers hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. What if there were remains inside? The thought sent shivers down their spines. Dr. Chase approached cautiously, reaching out to touch the cold, corroded metal of the aircraft's door. The jungle had tried to reclaim it, but the frame still stood, weathered yet eerily preserved. That's when they noticed something even more disturbing. The door wasn't fully closed. It hung slightly ajar, as if someone or something had left it that way. A creeping sense of dread settled over the group. Who or what was inside? The plane stood like a ghost frozen in time, its battered body telling a story, long hidden beneath layers of vines, moss, and decay. The dense jungle had tried to swallow it whole, but the wreckage refused to disappear. As the explorers circled it, they noted disturbing details. The impact had crumpled the front like paper. One wing lay snapped off several yards away, and the tail was twisted unnaturally, half buried under dirt and foliage. But what stood out most was that door, still slightly ajar. With a racing heart, Dr. Chase reached for the handle. With a deep breath, she pulled it open. The door groaned on its rusted hinges, echoing unnervingly through the still jungle. A musty, stale air escaped, a mix of decayed metal, rotted fabric, and something else. Something indescribable. Flashlights revealed the dark interior, rows of seats bolted to the floor, their fabric rotting and mold-covered, overhead compartments hanging open with scattered belongings. A child's teddy bear, faded and missing an eye, resting against a seat. A pair of sunglasses perched on a cracked tray table, scattered passports, and a water-stained journal with handwriting trailing off mid-sentence. Each item was a haunting reminder of lives interrupted without warning. As the team moved deeper into the cabin, they discovered more clues, tattered pieces of clothing, rusted jewelry glinting in the beams, and even an old watch, surprisingly still ticking, wedged between seats. Then came the most horrifying find. Near the emergency exit, a small pile of personal belongings had been carefully arranged as if someone had survived the crash and lived there for some time. There were cans of food long expired but open with makeshift tools, a crude blanket fashioned from torn clothing, a rusted knife with a blade stained by something unidentifiable, but no sign of any bodies. That's when the unsettling thought hit them. Had someone survived the crash and then disappeared into the jungle? Or worse, were they still here? The tension was unbearable. Nervous glances were exchanged as flashlights darted toward the shadows beyond the wreckage. They weren't just uncovering history, they were walking into it. Back at their makeshift camp, the team spread out the recovered items, personal belongings, fragments of documents, and, most chilling of all, a half-burnt flight logbook found near the cockpit. The pages were damp and brittle, but some entries remained legible. The pilot's shaky handwriting revealed a growing sense of dread. Weather worsening, turbulence increasing, instruments acting strange. Can't trust the readings anymore. Then another entry. Something's wrong. Not just a storm. Passengers are panicking, lights flickering. Engine noises different. I don't know how to explain it. These words sent chills down their spines. It wasn't just a mechanical failure. Something else had happened. Dr. Chase and her team mapped out the plane's intended flight path against the wreckage's location. It didn't add up. The aircraft was hundreds of miles off course, deep within an uncharted jungle, far from where any distress signals had been detected. Theories began to form: a navigational error, a desperate attempt to land after losing control, or something more sinister. Among the belongings was a small leather-bound diary belonging to a passenger named Emily Collins. Her words painted a haunting picture. "The turbulence is unbearable. People are screaming. I feel like we're falling, but the pilot says we're fine. I don't believe him. Something's outside the window, but it can't be. There's nothing but darkness." Her final entry, a shaky scrawl, read, "We've landed or crashed. I don't know where we are. Some are injured. No one's coming. It's been days. Something is in the trees." Stunned silence fell over the team. The idea that someone, or something, had been near the crash site was deeply unsettling. They weren't just handling artifacts. They were holding the last fragments of human lives, their fears, their final words, their desperate attempts to survive. Then, as they pieced together the clues, the mystery began to unravel in ways none of them expected. The wreckage wasn't just a forgotten relic, it was a silent witness to something far more chilling than a simple crash. While examining the fuselage, Dr. Chase noticed odd symbols scratched into the interior walls, marks that didn't match any airline codes or emergency signals. They appeared hastily carved, deep and jagged, almost frantic. Further inside, the team found what appeared to be a makeshift shelter built from parts of the plane. Signs indicated that survivors had tried to live there: empty water bottles, torn blankets, scraps of food wrappers. But something was off. The shelter was abandoned in haste. Half-eaten food sat untouched, as if the occupants had left suddenly or had been taken. Then came the most horrifying discovery: a tattered journal hidden beneath debris. It belonged to First Officer Nathan Price. His entries grew more erratic with each day. "Day 3. We've set up camp. Some are injured, but we're hopeful. No sign of rescue yet." Day 7. Strange noises at night, whispers, but no one is there. Day 12. People are disappearing. First Sarah, then Mark. No blood, no struggle, they're just gone. Day 18. I saw it. It's watching us from the trees. It's not human. The final entry was barely legible, smeared with dirt and what looked like dried blood. It ended with a chilling warning: "If anyone finds this, don't stay after dark." The team exchanged uneasy glances. This was no longer just an investigation into a crash. They had stumbled upon something far darker. Could it have been wild animals, or perhaps the delusions of people trapped in isolation? Dr. Chase couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The jungle around them suddenly felt suffocating, the trees pressing in like silent sentinels. One of the explorers, Marco, whispered, "What if whatever is out there still is?" His words hung heavy in the air. After uncovering these haunting details, the team faced a difficult choice: keep the story buried or bring it into the light, no matter how disturbing. The weight of what they'd found, the cryptic diary entries, the eerie signs of disappearances, and the lingering sense of being watched was too great to ignore. That night, gathered around a dim campfire as the jungle hummed with nocturnal life, Dr. Chase addressed her team. "We can't keep this to ourselves. There are families who deserve to know the truth, even if it's not the one they hope for." Reluctantly, they agreed. They documented every detail: photos, videos, notes, careful not to sensationalize the horror. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a story that needed to be told. Once back in civilization, the team handed their findings over to the authorities. News of the lost plane discovery spread like wildfire. Major networks covered the story under headlines like "Mysterious Plane Wreckage, Found After Decades in Jungle." Chilling Journal reveals terrifying final days of missing flight. Unsolved Jungle Mystery: What Happened to Flight 319? The media frenzy was relentless. Reporters speculated wildly, from theories blaming wild animals to supernatural forces. But for Dr. Chase and her team, it wasn't about fame or headlines. It was about the human lives behind the mystery. Authorities worked to identify remains and personal items found at the site. For the families of the missing passengers, phone calls reopened old wounds and brought long-silenced names back into painful focus. Maria Ramirez, whose brother was a passenger, tearfully said at a press conference, "For years we lived in the dark, wondering if he suffered, if he was scared. Now we know. It hurts, but at least we finally know." The discovery brought a painful kind of closure, answers wrapped in grief, but answers nonetheless. The recovered journal, with its final desperate words, was returned to the family of First Officer Nathan Price. His sister clutched it like a relic, her face a mixture of sorrow and pride. "He was brave," she whispered. As time passed, the story faded from the headlines, but left an indelible mark on everyone who followed it. It was more than just a tale of a lost plane. It was a story about lives lived, connections lost, and the echoes of the past that never fully fade. For the team who uncovered it and the families who endured the loss, the discovery's impact would linger forever. In the end, Flight 319's tragedy wasn't in vain. The lessons learned helped improve safety protocols in aviation, making air travel safer for millions worldwide. Aviation historian Dr. Jordan Blake remarked during a conference, "This isn't just a story of loss, it's a story of learning. Every mistake teaches us something. Every tragedy leaves a legacy." A memorial was erected near the crash site, a simple plaque surrounded by stones bearing the names of passengers and crew. For many families, it became a sacred place, a final resting spot for memories they thought were lost forever. As we reach the end of this haunting story, we're left with more than just the mystery of a lost plane. This tale is a powerful reminder of how fragile life can be, how quickly the familiar can vanish, and how the past can resurface when we least expect it. From the moment Flight 319 vanished without a trace to its shocking rediscovery deep within the jungle, every piece of this story reveals something profound about human resilience, the relentless pursuit of truth, and the emotional weight of closure. Now it's your turn to reflect. What are your thoughts on this gripping story? How do you feel about the impact on both the explorers and the families? Share your thoughts and any similar stories you've heard in the comments below. If this story captivated you, don't forget to subscribe to Narrations in Motion for more real-life mysteries, emotional journeys, and stories that stay with you long after the video ends. Hit the like button, share this video with friends, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next gripping tale. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay thoughtful, and remember, some stories are lost to time, but they're never truly gone.